Thanks for joining. In this installment of our study skills tutorials, we are going to discuss strategies and tips for practice assessments. More specifically, when you're doing your homework, how do you answer the questions? And importantly, what do you do when you get stuck? So first up, what are some examples of those practice problems or practice assessments? What have we been talking about? This obviously includes your homework problems, either from Sapling or any online homework system, even from the back of the book, any of those problems that you are doing to help practice and learn lecture content. These are all great practice problems. These also include pre-lab questions. These questions often require knowledge, that's maybe not covered in lecture yet, or it's from the pre-lab reading. These are really great problems because you should be completing them on your own. And lastly, of course, practice test questions. These are straight from those practice tests that your instructor will often provide to help you study for an upcoming test. These are really great practice problems to work through on your own. So be honest, how do you complete your homework? How do you answer those practice problems? Especially when you get stumped, what do you do? The students' answer to those questions has changed recently. More often than not, students go to the internet now. You can put an entire question prompt into the search line in Google, and I'll bet something close comes up. Students can also now go to YouTube, type in a topic, and find some really great teaching videos about an entire concept, walk you through each step. Students often also use an online tutor or a course helper, a website that's specifically designed to help students get through their practice problems. Of course, students also can use a textbook solutions manual, especially for problems assigned in the back of the book. These are all very common tactics used by students to get through their homework. Nearly all of them involve the internet, and I am a faculty member, and in all honesty, I will use a lot of these tactics as well. So what's wrong with that? What's wrong with using the internet? There's nothing inherently wrong with the internet. It's an amazing resource that has absolutely changed our lives. But with that, so have the number of people that are contributing answers on the internet. And therefore, a lot of the answers online are unreliable, not credible, definitely not any are peer-reviewed, very few if they are, and as a faculty member searching things, I can tell you that a lot of them are incorrect. Okay? Just think about the distribution of students. There's the A students and there's the D students, and they're all contributing their input on the internet. Okay? Makes it really hard to find a good or reliable source. Even Chegg and those online course helpers, they don't have people checking the answers that the tutors give. Okay? They don't have any peer review level going on. And so very often even those websites have incorrect answers. Very importantly, the internet stuff is not in tune with what you are currently learning. So for example, let's say you're learning gas laws, and so you ask a balloon problem. You're going to find stuff online that relates to party planning and, maybe even hardcore physics, okay? Stuff that's often not related to what you are specifically doing. And therefore that makes it not relevant, and more importantly, it doesn't emphasize what your instructor thinks is important. Okay, so the instructor asked that question for a reason, and so if you go online to find an answer, it is likely not going to be the topic or the specific aspect that your instructor wanted you to learn, okay? Because your instructor is not anticipating you to go to the internet to find the answer, okay? They asked that question to solidify a concept that you directly went over in lecture. And so if you go online, that's not in tune with what you are currently learning, and therefore your answers are not going to be helpful. Another big issue with the internet is that a lot of the answers can be plagiarized, and students need to submit your own work. So it's really hard not to copy exactly what you find online, especially when you're like, nobody's going to know the difference if I copy this word for word, or even if you paraphrase it. It's still not your work, okay? So it's not ethical to use internet solutions as your own work, okay? And using the internet, again, it's just like peeking at the answer, okay? You're not actually learning when you check on the answer, okay? That's not learning. When you can see the answer and then you're like, oh, right, now I get it, okay? You only understood it because you checked the answer, okay? That's effectively cheating, right? And it doesn't help with learning. So the next obvious question is, well then, what do I do? That's a very good question. Let's discuss it. Let's discuss some really great problem-solving tactics. First thing you really have to try and remember is try not to procrastinate. And I know that it's hard, but you cannot have effective learning when you're faced up against a deadline. You need time to have the learning solidify in your brain and sit there. And then when you're ready, all you gotta do is just try the problem on your own. Don't look at anything, don't get out any resources except for a notebook, okay? Get out your notebook, write down the problem. You should have all of your work in one place, okay? The notebook is really helpful for recalling and bringing help to others, okay? Or bringing it to the instructor. Just get out your notebook and try the problem, okay? Try anything, struggle with it. Really think back to what you learned in lecture, okay? Really try and just use what you know to answer that problem. Don't do anything else, but just try, okay? Struggling through a problem has really been shown to solidify learning, okay? When you are problem solving and you're critically thinking about how this applies here and you get stumped and how can you troubleshoot, how can you get past this, okay? That really solidifies the learning. Let's say you're here now and you're stuck, okay? You've tried the problem and you're just stumped. It's totally okay, totally common. What should you do before you go to the internet? Review your lecture notes. They really should be your first resource. You took those lecture notes for a reason, and 99% of the homework comes directly from the lecture content. So just review those lecture notes. You will find something related to the problem you were struggling on. You may even find an exact example problem that you went over in lecture. Okay, it's probably there. If it's not there, look at the other resources provided by your instructor. Maybe an online guide to help you through your homework, or a video that your instructor provided. It's there. Again, the problem was assigned for a reason. It was assigned by your instructor. So look at those instructor provided materials, including the textbook. And I know that these are so expensive, but your instructor is assuming that you have a copy. Okay? There are free copies available in the library. Your instructor may even have a copy that you could borrow regularly. And the content from lecture comes directly from the textbook, and therefore if you're struggling from a homework problem that is over lecture content, it's going to be in the textbook. They have so many great example problems, and they really should be your next go-to resource. Okay? And a little very well-known secret actually is that pre-lab questions come directly from the reading. You don't need to go to the internet. Just turn a few pages earlier if you're struggling with a pre-lab question. Just review the reading. Let's say you're still stumped with the problem. You still have so many other resources. You can use the online helpers and the homework hints directly embedded in your online homework system or in the reading. Okay? Your fellow peers and supplemental instruction leaders and any sort of study group. Oh, those are amazing resources for you. Just bouncing ideas off, discussing the problems, those absolutely help with learning. Along that line, of course, the instructor is going to be able to help you learn. The instructor knows how to actually teach the concept, and he or she knows exactly what they want you to get from the problem. And so break that barrier, go to your instructor. They will be extremely helpful. And of course, there are plenty of good online resources. LibreText has free online textbooks. Understanding that it's likely not what your instructor, it's not directly on the same level as your instructor and directly in tune with your learning, but they are still really great resources. Okay? No matter how you answer the problem, whether you went straight to the internet or you worked through all the steps here, you need to review the problem, okay? Does it actually make sense to you and the answer that you found or the answer you came to, okay? Cover up the answer. Could you do that question again, especially, a week later? And really, you need to understand that question and the concept it involves, both forwards and backwards, because you know that instructors do not reuse questions. And so how else could that concept be tested? What other question could be asked? You need to be reviewing the problems after you complete the homework. So one last topic I want to hit are practice tests, because I really find these to be invaluable resources. What's listed here has a bunch of ways that a student could use a practice test, either from just glancing at the problems to working through each problem without any resources. And so hopefully, though, whatever you're doing, you are looking at the practice test and figuring out what you are missing and reviewing those difficult concepts. Okay? But arguably, the best way to use a practice test is to use it like a real test, okay? Use it like a practice test, okay? So what that means is studying beforehand. Do all of your studying, work with your study group, work through their homework, all of that shortly before you even look at the practice test, okay? And when you're ready, after you've done all of your studying, just like you would for a real test, take the practice test, okay? Find a quiet environment, time yourself, put all of your resources away, and try the test, just like a real test, okay? And then, after you've timed yourself and the time is up, review your work. Perhaps there's a key provided, okay? Compare your work to the key and see how well you did, okay? You need to understand the concepts that you know really well and not waste time on those, and instead spend time on the real difficult concepts for you, okay? So if you use the practice test just like a real test, you should be able to get the most out of it. So however you studied, good job. You made it here, you've gone through all of these practice problems, nice job, but realize that you'll never see those same questions again. As I mentioned, instructors rarely reuse questions, okay? So that's why you have to understand the concepts behind each question. You need to learn the concepts, not memorize them, because that's the only way you're going to be able to take a question out of left field and use the learning that you've already acquired on this new type of problem, okay? And that's how you should continue to study. How else could these problems be asked? How else could this concept be tested of me, okay? Will I understand what's going on? So thanks for watching. Happy studying.